are collaborating to drive optimal land uses, economic growth and resilience.
Yep.
And you'll know that Venture Timaru is part of this collaboration.
Sure.
So I encourage you to read this if you don't get the Farmers
I
Weekly.
get it, I read it, yeah.
Well, so I sort of challenge you on that no one in our district is doing anything. I'd say Venture Timaru is very much in the game and working collaboratively across the country when it comes to diversification and looking at different land uses. I'm part of working with Nigel and Tony Howie on, and so yeah, I've encouraged you several times to talk about that. Now, being a crop farmer, I was with him last night. Protein, pea proteins in this country.
Correct.
Why you would give an example of something that we don't do in this. You know, it's a rotational crop. And it's not really growing Canterbury crop because it doesn't like wet soils, it needs drainage. So here in South Canterbury, it's used as a rotational crop.
So there's a key issue here around not your standard field pea. So the benefits of it are the very, very low water consumption, protein.
But it needs a free draining soil, which we don't have.
Sorry, you what?
They need.
I would need to go into the detail on that, but they're growing them very extensively. One of many examples of the alternative crops that can be grown globally, and 5 of what's traded. That's not the future. That's the past.
No, but it's sort of like you say that we're not listening and that we're not doing things, but the example in your presentation is around a particular crop that isn't utilised in this country, and I don't think South Canterbury needs to be the leading protein milk pea producer, do we? Is that what you think we should be?
This is where I think we need a leaders group to be on the surface.
Vegetarian for 29 years, so I'll just put that out there. Beyond Meat, which is a massive plant-based food. Interestingly, you know, say July 2019, a share was worth the average price over the last 52 weeks has been me that plant-based food and these Gen Zs, I don't know what they're eating, but it isn't. To me, I do not like your plant-based foods. I'd rather eat whole food than anything else. So, market.
Sure.
They have since 2019. It would say that no one eats that kind of food.
So 1 in 5 new businesses go belly up within 5 go belly up. The majority of companies don't survive beyond 5 years, so other companies like Impossible Foods are still doing fine. Wouldn't be building a 500,000. I use pea protein milk. It tastes really good with muesli, and it's got very low emission, supporting that sector of the economy. Dairy farmers might say, well, I'm not supporting them. Well, I still have dairy milk in my coffee. Wider than what I have picked up that And look, I applaud what they're doing, but this stuff is coming in so fast. I don't see it being processed and adequately addressed and widely publicised. So if a small group is doing it and has got a whole lot of really good information and nobody else knows about it, that doesn't help. So the Climate Leaders Group has to produce credible information, and it has got to be got out there so that all of us can say, hey, that bit matters to me and that bit so if we can not hung up on any particular structure, and I know they're doing good work on what else could we put through those processing companies. It's not really scratching the surface. The pressure that's at the 63% of our market, I haven't found any analysis of. And if those Scope 3 emission standards said we want products with X amount of emission and it wipes out to do that. So there's pretty much a global consensus at the moment that politicians globally will not make the right decisions for the climate, and that it will force us one way or the other. And the economic choices that I see increasingly being made overseas are very, very threatening to our animal industry. Animal sector organisation. Kate Ackland, last year, she farm sequestration of carbon, even though our overseas client says we won't recognise it. And they're still doing it. It's on their Facebook page. Oh. Sorry, I get pretty agitated about this.
No, you're right.
Acknowledge that this year we appointed a climate change advisor, so we are trying to get into the space. Why don't you just start a group? Why do you need 100K from us? I mean, I just don't get it. And 30 seconds.
Should just do everything for nothing.
You arrived here and said you're happy to, so you said you'd volunteer your time. So
for a job.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree.
If we're going to do this properly, then I'm saying we need a group of leaders, not staff in the council. We need leaders who have got tens, hundreds, and that's where I say but she's got skin in the game.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, we are at requiring consideration, so we'll touch on that at the end. Sorry, I know you wanted more time, but we need to keep going. We will move now. Welcome. Yeah, go for it. Thanks, Russell. Welcome. Push the button and away you go.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Russell Lund, and I'm here today simply just to provide a bit of reassurance really. The Theatre Royal and the library and the facility. So most of the larger projects in my career, I've been a cost and completed a lot of larger scale heritage work, including a great art gallery that 30 years on is still functioning very well, and only now just looking to the Hocken Library in Dunedin, which was an old cheese factory, converted into a sort of a cutting edge research and archive facility. and also the Early Settlers Museum. So I don't want to boast, but I just want to give you a little bit of context. It's been my day job for a long time, and I'm purely here just to offer some reassurance and advice. And I just want to firstly start with a bit of scary risk behind closed doors, and that is that 15% compounded for rates rises gets you double rates. But the scary truth for the Dunedin Council is they can't even balance their budget. They've borrowed the last percent and having to make some really hard decisions. The first point I'd like to make is that I sincerely of the Clutha, Central Otago District Council $2 million contract to go ahead with their community facility. Of their existing hall in 2016, and then had a very similar trajectory to your council about a scope creep, and then they added in contract for the largest ever project in Central Otago's history at a time of record rate rises. And furthermore, they have a budget of $1.7 million out of fund, which was the subject of last council's meeting. Primarily on the library, but mainly on the Theatre Royal. And that is someone who wants to see these buildings reused and can say what your advice received to date is that they can be done for far less than the budgets, which I understand are around circa $30 million for the Theatre Royal. Don't want to get into specifics today. I just want to point out a few things. Disclosure: my father built it. He was there pouring concrete, built it, and battled with Sir Miles Warren, the architect. We can blame him for the leaks. And so our councillors are familiar, you probably are, of the particular roof structure. It has exposed steel trusses, and then of course it has connections to the big glulam beams in the interior space to waterproof, and there's been ongoing issues. That said, perhaps before you choose to spend any money, you might just want to consider got people who are knowledgeable and expert at maintaining those joints between the trusses and the. It might cost $1,000 every 2 and spending millions of dollars on a new roof. The other built in 1977. Now we look at it, and it's a 70s building. In fact, another library like that in New Zealand, and if you replace it, it isn't going to be distinctiveness, and it is part that I think he might have said to you recently that if you demolish these buildings, you will live to regret it. And I agree with Mr. Stubbs. Royal, I think you've actually got a lot of positives. There's a lot of good things about the Theatre Royal that a lot of other similar heritage buildings, especially ones that I've worked on, it's functioning. It was functioning and it's been closed. The second thing is that you're not a cheese factory into a museum, and that's when you treat. You don't need to do that. You have discretion about whether you facilities, whether you want to do certain things. You're not obligated to do them, because in the room is the tension around the theatre groups and what they want to use the theatre for. Because obviously the theatre possible result, and I did speak briefly at the public meeting and I said there's the 80-20 rule, the result with 20% of the cost. It's that last 20% that costs the money, and that's what you've got with your current scope and your current design. That you've got, you know, as one example, the extra lines capacity to so that in order that touring shows can come to the Theatre Royal. Of extra cost and complexity. That's just one example. So the question for council is that, you know, in your objective side about your objectives for the Theatre Royal is that to attract more touring production shows. The point is that you can achieve a facility if there's an agreement that perhaps you're going to forego one or two shows. They'll go to Dunedin, to Invercargill, to the amount of lines on that one item, which is driving a lot of cost, is very similar to the Dunedin Regent Theatre, which I understand has nearly 50 lines, and it's double the size. So the Theatre Royal, I understand, has 1,800 seats, and so you're trying to compete with bigger centres. Now that's a question for council. Should you be doing that? And are you prepared? Councils are fiscally constrained, facing record rate rises. Is that reasonable? Or should it simply be a theatre that's improved, touring shows, but perhaps not the 80-20 rule? I would like to note about that, about the use of the Theatre Royal, is that London and other places now, there's less demand for physical stage sets. It's now more about video created on being not physical things that are hung from the lines far away. Like, for example, in Dunedin, Kavanagh High School. Sets. So, you know, that's another thing that, you know, so my suggestion is that come for Timaru and to reuse your characterful cultural landmark that is the Theatre Royal, and you can set the budget to suit the scope. That's the great thing about a heritage is already mostly strength. There are things that you can defer and things you can do in the future, you know, when funds and when the financial position allows. One of them, and to that, I would just say that deemed to be not up to new building standard, and response to that is that I know that back of house can be easily just looking at it, and it may not get to 100. Do you need to go that far? The banks 70%, I'm sure some of you know this, the banks will lend on that. They don't demand that you go to 100 and so, and it's also really important to be strengthening and what that drives, because they say it's important to consider the context, the change. That's less than getting hit by a bus crossing the road. So yes, do what you can. So it's basically the engineers, even the engineers are telling people like the council and building owners, do what you can economically, but let's remember the simple rule. Theatre Royal is that it's not a leaky building. And if should you build a new facility, and that's not facetious or like, I'll give you an example with the Salvation Army built an award-winning auditorium in Wellington because there's simply no way to fix it. It was sold for demolition value. Years ago, it's now being demolished. So to think that, a brand new rural. So there is a risk that new buildings become complex. Sort of consider what might happen to Timaru CBD, retain and refurbish the Theatre Royal. What message does that send away from its landmark? I mean, as I understand, there's only one owner, the owner of the Grosvenor Hotel, who's actually gone ahead and strengthened their building in the Timaru CBD. And so if we're trying to encourage people to Edwardian facade, which is a great thing. It's a whole redevelopment was that you wanted to make this facility that its highest and best tourist attraction is actually with your Edwardian street can't be the same. We don't answer any questions, but that's basically all I wanted to say, that you can do this.
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Misunderstood what you were saying, is that you would have seen this morning we were presented other options, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that. Scope creeping, that once again, instead of sticking to our basics, just look at what the asset we've got, strengthen it, not move on. But, and so I'm not sure if you've looked at what we were presented today, so I'm just asking you, do you think once again we're getting ourselves into a position of scope creep?
Look, as projects develop, the consultant team has to have very clear objectives. To do what they consider best practice and to go to that the 80-20 rule. So all my remarks were you've foregone the refurbishing the Theatre Royal is one of them, and I believe you're probably looking at another. My view, it's not the time to do the museum now. It simply needs to be parked.
So, Mr. Lund, the Theatre Royal, and I think we've come up with something, because I've heard you before, I've spoken to you before. So I can walk you through that, and actually it would be great for you to walk through what we present. So if we can do that at some point, it would be great. Yeah.
No, more than happy to, Chief Executive.
Call further, Councillor Booth.
The way that we've been approaching it, us would do that. We get consultants and we get advice, and then we get all these reports, and then we put stuff together. What would be the alternative approach in your mind? Better outcome, more economic outcome, that perhaps would kick something across the line that is more realistic?
down to the count. A development of 30 apartments in an old warehouse in Dunedin for the Salvation Army. To be honest, at a cost that the minister couldn't believe, and it was in a major sub-trades and made it easy for them, and actually had a lot of them. We did it on time and material. Especially in a overheated market, there's risk. You know, those sort of projects are dirty. You know, you get messy and dirty, and nothing's plumb level or square generally. Now for the worst case scenario, you know, and that's what you probably got to date. You know, because if the council is willing to take some risk, you can, or you find. Can you find a contractor to it's about finding the right combination of consultants, because I don't believe that, I'll keep my opinions. You need to get people relationship with and have someone. We had to change things, and we deleted certain things with the agreement of the client, and we did other things, and it was a success. If you went and approached your local tradesman and got an hourly rate, I think you'd get a good result, but it would take really good management, and it takes someone with some experience, doing the, and I'm sure there will be quite a bit of that capacity here in Timaru.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. That's probably all time we've got for, unless there's a real pressing question. No, awesome. Thank you, Russell. Really appreciate you coming presenting. We go now to urgent business. So I've just got 3 items that I effectively want requests for reports on. So it's ECAN rates consideration, what we want to do moving forward. Paper on unitary authority and pros and cons in and around that. We've got RP around Canterbury are considering those conversations. So I think it's probably time that we do some thinking for trade waste and water with the Smithfield closure, and a report from they're going to make an OPEX. So those effectively we discuss those at the end. So I'll move that from the chair. Can I have a seconder? Against carried. So now go to urgent business and also we've got stadium timing where we're at when that goes to tenders, etc. So the public understand that. And then Councillor Booth, you and I discussed earlier around the art gallery, and I will add that to minor nature as well. So everyone comfortable with those? And is there other, sorry, I apologise, is water done well? There was the stadium timing at the front of the art gallery. Yeah. And, sorry, was there... Okay, perfect. Move now to conflicts of interest.
It's just we've got bench.
We'll note you as well. Yep, Alan for VT. Okay, no, that's perfect. Thank you. 2024, can I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Booth. Councillor Jackson is the seconder. Carried. The Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillors. On page 20, I'm happy to move that from the Chair, Councillor Shannon, Councillor Oliver. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. 8.2, schedules of functions attended by the Chief Executive. I'll move that from the Chair again. Councillor Shannon, happy to second that. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. We move now, we've done 9.1, we move to 9.2. So we've got dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings policy hearing. So we're going to welcome Christopher Templeton to come and speak. Page 24 of the paper. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councillor, Your Worship, Councillors, Council staff, members of the public both here and online. Taitakariki is my waterway. As you can see from my is lacking in that it does not recognise and allow for the special status of heritage buildings, both scheduled and listed. And for those councillors who are confused about the two terms listed and scheduled, confused but too afraid to ask, a scheduled building is one that is listed in a territorial authority's long-term plan and Heritage New Zealand's Te Angapura and the official national record. So in the definition of the policy of dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings, the definition of heritage buildings is lifted from the section 1 and 2 from the Building Act 2004. However, is also given, which is a place or part of a place that is included in a schedule of a district plan because of its heritage value. That from the policy, I would like to see that it put in, because the only mention of a scheduled building so I'd like to see either Clause 5 of the Building Act added to the definition or a clause of heritage buildings. It just clarifies the terminology there, reading the policy, and who though they don't actually read it. To the matter of the treatment of heritage buildings under the policy, I consider it short-sighted to treat heritage buildings the same as dangerous, unaffected or unsanitary buildings. And of those, only 55 are listed buildings, and there are only 113 scheduled buildings. District plan, which hasn't yet been put into place. They're an endangered species, and the owners have the role of kaitiaki, a guardian, a custodian of that building. Affected or unsanitary. I would like to see that both Heritage New Zealand, if it a consultant about the building, unless there's no immediate threat to life. Building Act is to identify a danger and to. I'd like to see an extra clause added to the policy stating that for a heritage building, a last resort, and that remediation or make safe the building without compromising its heritage material or its structure. Otherwise, I see a furtherance of the practice I can see up and down the Motu at the moment, which is known as demolition by neglect. Rot or decay by the owner. It's declared a dangerous building and then it's demolished. It's something, our heritage buildings are rare and fragile. I don't want them to become extinct.
Thanks, Christopher. Any questions? No, that's, I think we'll pick that up with officers shortly, but yeah, appreciate you submitting on that, thank you. Yep. Alrighty, I'll welcome now our officers. We've got Brendan and Jason. Don't be shy, team.
Good afternoon, Council. So the purpose of this report was for you to be the written submissions. Jason, myself, and other officers will, in preparation for the deliberations and final adoption of the policy, consider the written submissions and the material to prepare some officer commenting, potential proposed amendments and the like, and that's proposed to go to you. To be useful is if anything has come out of those submissions or the oral submission Mr. Templeton just made that you would like officers to investigate in any particular detail, so that we can prepare that information for you for December.
Thank you. And so I spoke with Chris Thomas, who's in the audience, with his age concern hat on yesterday, and he didn't have time to submit, but I think his probably key point was picked up in 24 of the health submission, which was around interagency groups. And some regions have been set up to provide pathways for referral, and so probably the key and the state's guide in a consistent, sustainable and efficient way. But obviously I think the key concern from him was around how this policy helps support those that might be living in those environments, and what is the support mechanism, or how does that refer to it? And there's been, as the health submission points out, that there's been interagency groups, so it might not sit out in this policy, but it might be something worth referring to as far as an outcome and where we refer that particular point to. Cool. So you really just need us to receive and note? Yeah, sorry. Oh, apologies. Questions? Councillor Pye.
What I'd find useful in that final report, and you may have included it in the initial report, but I can't remember, is how other... Is it something normal or totally unusual, nobody else separates them? Thanks.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, I was just interested, actually, but with regards to the health submission, which I thought this was Mr. Templeton's. In fact, for example, are they covered elsewhere, and is it just acts and duties here, then should they really be within this? Because I'm not keen, but should it be referenced? Because I thought they were good submissions.
Yes, that's a great question, and we will make reference, and so appreciate the feedback that has been given. The purpose of the process is to gain that feedback, to have those points of view, and we will certainly look at making those slight adjustments and amendments to the policy.
On the side? No, that's cool. So we'll go to recommendations. 1 is notes all the written submissions. 2 acknowledges Mr. Templeton, who's spoken to a submission. And then 3 is notes the feedback. So happy to move that, Councillor Shannon. Say aye. Against carried. Brilliant. Thanks, team. And thanks for those that have taken the time. To 9.3 on page 36, which is accidents register, actions register. I've been speaking too much. Okay, so we had some notes on this. So first one, September, this will remain on here until such time as a report at which review layout. Yeah. So I guess the key one is, are we still, it's probably a question for senior leaders, are we still living by that rule as far as any budget reallocation? Is that coming through to elected members? Is that being reported on?
We've only had one, and that was to the Infrastructure Committee with moving that CapEx money, reallocation of budget at this stage.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sub-trades, I know there's been some action on this, and I know, Mr Trainor, you can probably speak to this. I just note the street sweeping business case, Andrew, that we'd talked about a process. I know it's officer-led, but I think members, so we can see that the also like to see, I know some of this will be long-term as contracts will be more than, multi-years, but 5 years is too long. I would like to see a plan of what can be done through to June next year, so end of the financial. And yeah, if need be, a delegated group of councillors to just have consideration. I'm happy to receive any thinking from the field, but I think we need to have visual over this. Any comments, or you're comfortable with that direction? Yep, cool. Steve, you pick that up. There again, I know there's been...
So there's a crossover here with the one above.
Yeah.
So we've done analysis on electrical services, and that's showing there would be an advantage to bringing in-house electricians and cleaning. There's been specialist cleaning from the BAU cleaning, and they are different, and that's getting worked on as well. So it's clear that there is an advantage there. We're all yeah. So I'm not sure. The electricians, we can bring that to you. You've got to separate their spend from CapEx to operational. A lot of the CapEx spend with electricians is part of the capital program, and it probably stays there, whereas the OPEX probably comes in-house. There is a variety of ways we do cleaning. Some as staff, and some are, which is the best way to go.
Can we pull and the maintenance painting into that? And
yes, we're doing. We're looking at building carpentry and painting.
Okay, perfect. So maybe in this next update, can we just include, if they're coming through slowly, can we just have a timeline, estimated timeline through to June, just so we can tick it off as we go? Everyone comfortable around that? Yep, cool. Next one is underutilised assets. Sort of again, for me, it's just so we could note a plan on this. I think the update was, I think the key thing is maybe a bit of a timeline in around it.
Yeah, this one's gone a bit.
No, I
other
understand
infrastructure, so we'll get a timeline.
No, that's fine. Cool. Financial template we talked about the last time was just to stay there. The report due, then asset management, and that role is actually live on. Sorry, stop me here, team, if there's any questions. Council properties. About the last time was around the requirement, or do we need a divestment policy? And I think we'd talked about the pros and
Policy on that, mirroring WAMAX policy.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Coastal erosion, there's stuff today. Parks Capital Grant.
So the coastal erosion, that was presented at the Infrastructure or the Environment Committee? There was a report presented? Sorry?
No, it's today.
Oh, it's on today?
Yeah, we've got it today. Yeah. Yeah. It's all right, you're getting ahead of yourself. Parks Capital Grant, we've confirmed the removal, so that can disappear. These can just be confirmed and then deleted for the next time. Then we need to go to, one was that, oh no, done that. And then the parks budgeted, that can come off too. Financials. Comments on that one. So you got annual report, is there?
Happens over audit, but to not have financials from May and then the next lot we get in September is a long time between drinks.
Yeah, I think they're
So,
really simple.
I don't know what the answer is, but
Even
we
that
need to
one-
find an
it's
answer. It's good, even if we're getting something like
Yeah,
that
just
in
something,
between.
if there's an absence of the full details, just a one-pager would be helpful, wouldn't it?
I've committed that the monthly financials will go to the council meetings. It's stock standard practice.
Cool, all good, sorry. Just jump in if I don't see. Special funds, that's removal as well. To confirm, yep, so that's confirmed. You're all happy with that? Yeah, library report is tidied up. So library and, so you're comfortable with they can move to minutes for next time? Yeah, Councillor Pinnington.
Or a report somehow. To be honest, I was horrified when we got the report. The deferred maintenance came to $4.5 million. We had a similar situation last year with the stadium when we finally got a report. So I want to know who's actually looking after our property. Is it individual units or does it sit under someone? Because I can't believe no one's looked at those buildings till now and had those sort of problems. Have no maintenance problems for large buildings. I'm worried have we got them for any buildings?
They're currently the main units of which use them. So your community services buildings sit in community services, that being the buildings related to infrastructure sit in infrastructure. Now, that's how it's been and that's how it is at the moment, and that's where it sits. Obviously, Nicole works closely with, is starting to work a lot more.
Have any expertise in the area?
We did talk some time ago around the ideal would be to have it sitting within the property. The previous chief executive, I thought we were heading. I'm not saying that it was right and wrong, but it would be worth doing some analysis on what that looks like, is I think what you're asking, Councillor Biddington, isn't it? Because we've,
Yep.
I mean, the theatre...
It just seems to get lost through
Yeah.
to the CE, you know. When you saw those reports in your previous roles, would that have been acceptable? Because no one's looked at those buildings.
My previous role will be the same, and those buildings were sitting in one unit.
Yeah, so isn't there a,
So both ways, you've got the same problem, and it gets down to your budget. So right at the moment, in our LTP, there is very little budget for maintenance.
I accept that, but that's wrong, isn't it? I mean, we've got the same problem with the Geraldine Theatre, there's buildings in Temuka. By just ignoring it, the problem doesn't go away. We've got to be real about this stuff.
I agree. Yep, I agree.
So how do we solve it?
We'll have to make sure, we are, Councillor Scott's right, we're getting building conditions done. We're also getting staff trained on asset management. A lot of work with her staff on training them on asset management. Where they sit should be irrelevant. It's more about making sure we've got the budget and the people trained and the systems in place.
I think from our point of view, the key one is that we have governance oversight of it and, yeah, agree budget, but we need to understand if we're pulling money back at a specific program, so somehow we need, it's a little bit like those infrastructure projects that's tied up into one sort of report. It may not be that easy, but actually maybe it's a quarterly report about maintenance spends, where we're at to date, etc., and have that sort of rolling through, and let's understand where the deficit is. But as far as an action, that some further work is done, or maybe just a proper update on where we're at. Out of an actual requested report where we're at and where we're heading.
I guess we kind of get out of jail because we're pulling money back out of a larger theatre project.
Yeah, that's more capital money. Somehow we have to build the maintenance into our OPEX.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's not
though.
there. On your bottom line. So we're going to actually have to get the status of the buildings, ensure we've got budget for the maintenance, which is a challenge to us right at the moment because we're borderline deficit. So we have to work out how do we pay for that. And you're right, it's vital. You just got to go up. Just got to go up to the sea bays. You've got a person maintenance. Look at that building. It's starting to show its age pretty quickly.
And partly that's the benefit of bringing some of the back in-house, so you can actually have it programmed better.
I think as you graduate and you start bringing maintenance to bring it all together. So Z going out and doing, we had the same setup. There was always tension there as well. Operational staff and the maintenance team, because the maintenance operational staff, we're pushing at them to do more and more. So we need to get that balance right.
Enough there, Steve, as far as an action. Move the actions update register. Councillor Jackson, Councillor Burt, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say. Page 46, and that is release of public excluded items. I don't assume there's any discussion. I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Pye. Put the motion. Carried. 9.5 on. For that one is VT, so we'd need it would normally be myself, and then next would be the Deputy Mayor as sort of protocol. Councillor Booth, Councillor Scott, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry, that was TDHL, sorry. You're looking at me saying I've got it wrong. Next one is VT, council proxies again, suggest myself and Councillor Shannon again. Thank you. Councillor Parker is the aye. We'll move now to adoption of meetings calendar. 51, there were some reasons around the two different versions. Was one for more regular council meetings was around controlling length of meetings, because our meetings are getting a ability to have frequency, so urgent items can come through, and also thank you, Councillor Pye. Councillor Shannon.
Yeah, just a question, more frequent or coming to monthly, and I'm only mindful pressure that might put on officers, if that's a real concern or not, or does it actually spread it across more meetings? Are you spending an awful lot more time preparing for meetings? Maybe, or not?
Through the chair, I think it would be the sitting next happening more frequently. It would be less likely that a report could be written for the next meeting as such, so it might be the next but one, but it would mean with the meetings being slightly closer together. To report is more frequent, but then there is with the monthly council meetings is it's not that significant difference.
So I think the one, but did any committee chairs have any thoughts? Or deputy chairs, anyone? Yeah, Councillor.
The preferred option?
No.
So is that up to us?
Yeah, the training wheel's taken off. We can make our own decision.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy with either one, to be fair. But, you know, number 2 looks good to me because some of the dates are regular and I like stuff that's regular. So it works for me, but, you know, whatever works for anybody else is fine.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor.
If you went with...
A new citizen.
Yes. Citizen Doran. If you went with the version 2, the one amendment that we want to make due to the RMA hearings changing, or we got them wrong, is that would probably move the standing committees into the week after Easter, because the RMA hearings are afterwards. Sorry, that's on version 1. Version 2 is fine.
That was actually, and it's, but yeah, I would strongly advocate for them to stay in the calendar. There is so much work that goes on by the community in concrete, so sort of, so yeah. System.
Yeah, so I'm happy to move 4.2 subject to. No further discussion? No, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. 0.8, I forgot that my wife has a liquor control area, and I might just pass you. Forgot that we've got a. So can you add that, Steve? Thanks. And I'll pass to you. Councillor Shannon, I had it on the wrong page, apologies.
You're confusing me, Nigel. And on that note,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just, as is, and be happy to answer any questions. And when I say be happy, I mean, of course, Sharon as Chief Licensing.
okay.
I just have one question. To the finances. Was there a problem we're trying to solve? Why is, or was this in place last year and it's against it? I just want to understand that.
Okay, so it wasn't in place in the police in time last year. Previous year it was, and we were lucky in around the risk that may be there. Yeah.
Councillor Jackson.
Sorry. Yeah. That people just passing alcohol outside who didn't pay to get in, and there was all sorts of dramas. It was the front page of the paper, and it got nationwide coverage.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor
My
Scott.
question is just, I was confused at the way that the police letter is written. It's saying they support Timaru District Council to. I mean, I don't care who it is, but is it us?
It's a combination, so it's between police, it's a joint venture. Yeah.
So I think we have the bylaw, and they have the power to exercise.
Thank you. No more questions. It was moved by Councillor Burt, seconded Councillor Jackson. All those in favour, please say aye. Approved. Carried. Thank you.
Move now to 9.9 on page 63. Performance report. Mr. Trainer.
So apologies for Andrea, she's learning about rates in Christchurch. So present the financial report as read. So if you look on page 65 of the table, below budget, it's mainly driven through subsidies and grants that are behind, particularly LTU. Different amount coming from there in different timing, but that's offset development and financial contributions. Personnel costs are slightly over, and we have virtually no vacancies. So we're down to about 7 vacancies, hovering around the 2% mark. It's not long ago we were up around. Also, there's potential which may show its head when we employ our summer staff for pool. Cost bang on budget as they should be. Finance costs are lower. The point I made to Andrea is so there's a net positive variance there. And other expenses, we've got a I've got to think what around a number of areas. All the other reports are tabled there. To 77. I think when you look at these, I've got question marks all over the place. And when you look at this, the vast majority of our staff sit in corporate. So we're getting right services. So, you know, I'll pick on roading. There's a whole crew out there. They all should be in here. They should all be in that area. Same with water and so forth. So right areas. I also tried to do some work with the annual report. I gave up within no time because the chart of accounts usual when I talk through that with Andrea. It's decades old. Chart of accounts. So we've got some issues there. Also, I'm quite concerned we don't seem to perfect timing. It's well used across the world for local authorities. However, it doesn't, right at the moment, we don't have a reporting tool over the top of it into financials, and nor can the other offices. So we've got a real problem there in that we rely. In saying that, we've got an overall small surplus of 219 against a budgeted deficit of 3 million. So at the end of September, we're actually doing relatively well. CapEx is behind. I know that Andrew's going to be giving water and roading a bit of a push along. Recreational leisure, that would be more related to the buildings, and that through the LTP they were planned to be getting started. So they're the main. Any questions?
Firstly, if you'd like to pass on to Andrea, thank you for changing the report. It is so much better having the description of the variance next to the variance and not in the commentary at the front, so you're going back and forward. So fantastic. My normal old bugbear is waste again, and the waste expenses are 329 above budget. We started off in this position last year. Are we going to end up with a $1.3 million deficit here again, or a cost blowout again? And it's every year since I've been here, this is an issue, and it concerns me.
I'll get Andrew to come and speak.
Well prepared, because I ask it just about every meeting.
Thank you. Well, as far as a bit ahead of the budgets, yeah, but we're aiming to bring that back into line. That I can assure you. Things that are happening in advance earlier on, and then we'll pull it back later on. So. Yeah, there's a commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Sorry. Councillor.
Just in corporate activities, internal loan interest is 824 below in corporate. I'm just...
Is this... Do you know something? I asked Andrea and she gave me a reason. Wonder what that meant. So I'll come back to you on that one.
Well, I guess if I multiply it by 3, I think we talked about the district plan consultancy fees, but what's the final oversight with hearings still to come?
Thank you, Councillor.
A small portion.
I couldn't possibly comment on that. It's a phasing issue. So we're actually going to, if we take the budget out to the end of the financial year, we'll actually, at the moment, we're looking at coming in under budget.
Okay, just that'll be handy to know. Phasing issue beside it, because it takes it off the hit list.
For you. So if you look at corporate, it's 1217 versus a budget of 63. Then when you go through each of the other departments, on roading, 186 versus. So what has happened there is the journal to allocate them to all the other departments has not happened.
Just 2 more, I think. we've got but it says it was not budgeted for, so what is that income and why?
Contribution to some infrastructure. It is, because that's part of the 350 and the consolidated.
I think we might.
It's okay, but it's numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did question Andrea because I thought it was part of the vested asset.
And another one, Councillor Payne.
It was quite a bit over. Hang on, I'm just going to go back. New vehicles purchased for parks, capex higher than budgeted. So, is someone driving a Rolls-Royce Silver Phantom? I don't know. That's a type of lawnmower, Michelle said.
I said it might be a lawnmower.
Basically, when the LTP was prepared, the $540,000 was basically for replacement of council's fleet at that time. Now, if you recall, when we put up need another $1 million in capital expenditure, which council approved. So that, of course, wasn't in the original budget. It's been added since.
So if we've approved it, why is it an overspend?
Well, we're reporting against the LTP budget. So, yeah.
Okay.
Which
Well,
will
if we could have a
through.
note to that effect as well.
Councillor Shannon. And then we'll come over this side.
Thank you. Probably another notes thing, actually. The capex being well under. Just can't quite tell how much of that is a time in theatre versus through what's happening in footpaths and roading. For example, it comes across to me that these guys are working really, really hard to save us some money. Or is it a timing issue?
I think at this stage it'll be timing. It's a really good point. We can adjust that. When we're under on cost or over on cost, we can actually show that. Yeah.
Just over this side. We're going to go to this side.
Clarity for me, really. But just the on strategy, elected members' salaries are out by 73,000. Why is that? How does that work? I mean, we all know what. But I don't understand that. Sorry. So can you clarify that for me?
So it's from the previous one.
Okay. Okay. And the other thing was contributions. So how does that work? 5. No downlands contributions received. End of year. That work?
I just trying to find the actual line, but contributions that receive when we connect new customers. So when the Downland scheme was upgraded, there was some new units available, new water was available. Attached with that is a contribution towards the, I guess, that treatment plant and the new recirculation. Now, we haven't had any applications up that we anticipated, and also actually a lot of money was removed for the Downlands. So some of the people in that scheme can't get the extra water that they want, so therefore their applications are declined. So we're not likely to receive very many. But it is demand driven.
Awesome. Good questions. Anyone else over this side? No? Councillor Booth? All good? Yeah, Councillor Pye.
I kind of feel like I probably know the answer to this, but on the face of it, it looks like we've borrowed money to put it in the bank, which never makes good economic sense. 1.5 million, it looks to have gone into other financial assets and cash deposits, because it definitely... Would we do something
My
like
understanding that's to do with our covenants through the
So we'll move to recommendation, the councillor performance report update for the period 1st July to 30th September. Move it, Councillor Piddington. Perfect, thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say move that the I have a seconder for that. Councillor Oliver, thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour. Thank you. Is Waitarika strategy?
Thank Bridget Lang, who's with us online from ECAM. And then I'll hand over to the guys who have come to us to visit from ECAM. But my overall assessment of this as a has come together with a positive mindset. We've agreed to compromise, and I think that's project. Also, the working groups worked in a similar the steering group, but having Bridget, who's thanks.
Firstly, I'd just like to start by for the ongoing support of the at various times, as well as our regular contributors, as Paul said, to the working group and the steering group. There have also been multiple occasions where we've brought consideration councillors have given to the project. As Paul said, we're going to take the paper and the strategy supplied as read, so we won't take too much of your time. I want to highlight a couple of key points within about the strategy itself. However, before I do so, I want to draw your attention to an editing mistake in the version of the strategy that is in the weekend, and so we do apologise, but please the strategy aligned with what was agreed by the steering the strategy that was approved by the steering group, and that version was the correct one. So we asked that this is just perhaps noted in the minutes for this meeting. So yes. That's that first paragraph, unfortunately, so what that should actually say, aligned with what has been agreed within the partnership, is within the catchment with an intergenerational ambition of 15% of the catchment land coverage being systems. This effort will focus on public and or marginal non-productive land that is voluntarily made available through the Goodwill for this purpose. Such ecosystems contributing positively towards strategy outcomes 1 and 2. So not a fundamental change. I'd like to say before handing to Chris is that this great news story for all involved. The 4 partners to this project have collaborated genuinely and effectively in the development of the strategy. It's been a chance for mana whenua, stakeholders and the community to consider fundamental questions around the future of this catchment. And they have in turn generously. This means that we've had a really positive engagement. The key thing that we have heard not only provided vital feedback and ideas, people from diverse backgrounds and perspectives to come together. It is these opportunities to meet, discuss, work together, the community to find common ground and shared aspirations for the catchment. It is these values which just highlighting how much this was a collaborative. Another thing I'd like to point out is the impact, and that is that the community, whether that's been, excuse me, farming, business, recreation, group, and that the many events, community have led to really positive interactions between between different sectors of the community that have been formed through this process have already proven to be a really positive outcome of this project, and we are already seeing community-led action aligned with this. About some of the strategy itself.
Sorry, I'll get the microphone. So, yeah, I just thought it was worthwhile, again, like Bridget, I don't want to talk too long and take the document as read, but I thought it'd just be worthwhile just to talk and then now move into actions and what we're sort of intending to do over the first part of the strategy. I think it's just quite, hopefully you've picked up, is that we're really looking for a sustainable project that lasts through time. We want small and incremental actions that are co-invested and shared once they're given the time for that to happen, and once they're repeated regularly. So the whole strategy is sort of geared towards that shared contribution, not leaning on any one agency or on any one part of the community, and trying to make actions that are manageable for all and repeatable. So what we're already seeing is led efforts where property owners are volunteering pieces of land. So we're looking at weed control, pest control, all of those little actions. And those things we hope will form the baseline of this project, and there'll be things that we can just continue to do. One action at a time, multiple actions. And then sort of coupled with that in this first 2.5 years now it'll be, those sort of bigger ticket items, which for this project will be most significantly what to do with the actual lagoon itself, which is a whole highly modified environment. Investigating feasibility, coming back with options and costs and things around what we could do there. And the plan with that is really just to make ourselves ready to take any funding opportunity that might come up in the future. So whether that's the next LTP cycles, whether that's from central government, from private contributions, or from all of the above, that's sort of how we're working on those two scales, this investigative scoping work leading into this next sort of phase. As Bridget indicated, we've built up a really good lot of goodwill and momentum with the community, so there are actions already sort of starting to happen, and ones that we've been managing to kind of get underway with contributions from various people. So we have a planting planned in a couple of weeks, for example, where contributions to that day will be coming from landowners, from the project itself, from Environment Canterbury's budget, from the general community in terms of volunteering, and from hopefully contribution as well. So that real partnership of all the different sectors of the community working together. So that's how we look to operate, and we look forward to hitting the ground running if you adopt.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Bridget. Online, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and Chris as well. It's fantastic, and as Paul alluded to, really good piece of collaboration.
What do you got in the budget for this project?
So we've got a 3-year budget which enables us to do that investigative work that we've committed to in that first 3 years, to make contributions to the pest control and to the planting. We hope to not do that entirely on our own. We have 4 to 5 property level planting efforts, but we want to maximise that out by getting contributions from landowners, by industry, from like that. Carry out the investigative work needed on the lagoon, the comms and other support, and the labour support for the project, that sort of thing. But yeah. So we're about 100,000 per year for the first.
Councillor Oliver, then Councillor Pye.
Oh, I just think this is an awesome thing you're doing. I mean, we've seen it through what the work like this and those stakeholder engagements and stuff, and how this all looking. Really important part of the district, I think. That
might be a documentary opportunity, do you think? Councillor Pye.
Strategy, given my experience with the Rakitata one, but this is a great example, and I think the team did a really good job of managing some of the pushback, because I was worried that by being a partner to the strategy, how we interact as a community with the lagoon, and I think where we've landed is actually really good, so well done, because like I said at the start, I wasn't convinced.
Thank you. And as for those processes, collaborating, we can get better outcomes for those same processes.
No, pretty good. That's part of a long day, I think, but yeah, thank you. Look, great collaboration, and we look forward to our teams working together. appreciate all your work, and thanks, Bridget, for joining us online. So I'll now go to strategy, and notes the strategy was formally endorsed by our Waitarikau Strategy Development Steering Group on the 27th of September 24. And do we need to just note maybe some minor edits will occur? Yeah. So Bert, seconder, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming in. We are 9.11, City Town update. Rosie and Andrew. That's on page 124. Righty team, floor's yours. You lead off, Andrew.
Your Worship. So this report is really to give you a bit of an update of what's happening. There are a number of strands to it. We have, of course, the actual new toilet block. We've also got other work that could be invigorate or refresh the CBD. Just also mention her commitment. She only arrived back in Timaru from Australia at about 4 o'clock this morning, and she's in here to do this report. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. The previous resolution that we had from this council with the long-term plan budget allocation, you generously allocated funding to the project, and it was terms as to what that funding would be applied for, but we referred to the relevant chapters in the of the time. Happy to take the report as read and answer questions, but essentially we're providing you with an update on the discussions with the community and asking you to note now the additional detail we're providing about what we would like to spend that money on. And so if you have any questions or comments, redirection, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Just where are we at with the slippery tiles? Doesn't seem to get a mention, and the funding for that.
We've just spent just under $30,000 on enhancement out of the $500,000 that's been allocated for that, and that's the work that's been. We are expecting to spend the full $500,000 within the current financial year, and officers in our land transport unit are working the interface between different renewals and things that could be happening to make sure that the locations chosen are sort of optimised for where the issues are.
I guess I was challenged by Josh South saying, he said we're biased against people with disabilities because we just he's on calipers with one leg. What we're going to do, what those locations are, and when we're going to do it.
Coating on the tiles, and we're just finishing that off as well. Piazza was the last area that's been done, so yeah, we'll get a plan out on the longer term stuff.
Yeah, the direction I had from officers about 2 weeks back. I'll make sure it gets released. Yeah.
That'd be great. And if we can circulate it to those organisations with elderly disabilities so they're actually aware of no one's with me, but personally, I think spending $1 million on Strathallan Corner is a total waste of money. And I would have thought we had other priorities, so I'll leave that there. But I am a bit confused about some of the money you're spending and what it actually when we'd spoken previously, had a handbook on events and how to do them, and also a coordinator for 50K. I'd want more detail exactly what they're doing. Then with the local business owners finding it difficult to interact with the council, I presume it is. So we're spending 50K on someone to interact with our own council office. Around that, and my final one was around geotechnic and other things. I thought we were doing a study to find out definitively what our soil was. Thanks.
Sure, I will take those one by one. So just to clarify, and I'm referring now to the landscape and budget analysis for vibrancy initiatives. So one of the third row, arts and events coordinator function, strategy and program comes straight out of the way in which that initiative is labelled in the master plan. But if you go in the fourth column, it's not proposed to use. So the $50,000 appears at the bottom of that row, and it's for BT and the Chamber and whoever, CBD group, whoever else that may be. So yes, BT are already delivering events, so these would be new and additional. Stakeholders have asked for, so they would be designed to increase footfall. So there are some activities there that would involve, it's essentially our time to dig into what any gaps might be in that area, but it's existing officer resource, it's not consultants or positions. You said to fund around interaction with council officers. I'm assuming that's a reference to the initiative about supporting trading in public places and outdoor dining. Yeah. So yeah, you're correct. The feedback from our council officers in some cases are potentially, and I've noted this in the middle central column, there is a real limitation around what some existing officers in their current roles can do because of the function. So we're not with any of that funding. There's also a perception that some of the policy itself is not as enabling as it could be. In some cases, it's things that are and so of that $50,000, we're proposing to use $10,000 of that with gap filler. We already have but it's a very cost-effective way. Here's what our policy says and here's an alternative wording. And obviously myself and Brendan and other members of internal officers, our time's not accounted for there, but it is still primarily an internal job. But the $10,000 with gap filler, what that does, it's essentially a very efficient way of tapping into all the existing knowledge they have about what other councils are doing and how other councils have worded their policy and bylaws where they're looking to make these changes. It doesn't mean, just to be quite clear, those are all the changes we need to make because there will be trade-offs and there will be other stakeholders who want to achieve different outcomes with any policy. What the opportunities are. And then the $40,000 in there, that again, that's not for officers. I've said facilitate parklets or kit of parts quite a few stakeholders in our city centre who would like to try doing things outside their shop and bringing a bit more vibrancy in. So this is literally to assist with the physical project work that they might require outside their business. It's not officer or consultant type. Was the $80,000 for the strategic development, $1,000 work that's already been undertaken around in the previous financial year, and it does to resolve that issue and collect further data. So that's would be applied for. Essentially, half of it is the cost of reinstating. Role would change the value that we could realise in terms of making. Exhausted the value, we've spoken to them, we know what the issues are, but there's a lot of other building owners out there who are looking current officers in a regulatory role cannot provide. And there's also one of the main frustrations that from our local consulting community is inconsistent, and that has really significant financial implications. Like to see council continue to take a lead on that and really zero advice is being received, and the geotechnical is one of them, and set up that community of practice with to look at what are our common challenges and $1,000 for 6 months, 1 day a week, which is, for anyone doing the maths on consultants, is actually pretty reasonable. There as well, I've said discretionary budget for the officer leading that project, because I would expect that as they work, as they might identify a need for a particular have to be spent until evaluated opportunities identified.
I suppose I was a little bit disappointed with the vibrancy list. I thought, oh, there's not much. Again, it's more reports and it's installing of screens. So I suppose I thought there would be some more tangible things for our community to see the value in our spend. However, I feel like my calculator and your calculator might not be the same, acting the same way, because we have the toilets that are $384,000, redevelopment of $995,000, and the vibrancy work at $200,000, which comes additional budget coming from, or have.
Sorry, are you trying to?
When you look at your financial and funding implications.
Yeah.
Section 135. Because that's within this financial.
Plus the 600 gives you the 2.1 for the capital projects. Yep, and what I have failed to mention in the financial and funding implications is the operational allocation, which is $200,000 a year for each of the first 3 years of the long-term plan. So those vibrancy initiatives don't need to fit. Sorry. So is operational budget, and I've referred to it earlier in the report, but I haven't referred to it under financial and funding implications. Sorry for the confusion there. Yeah.
100K for the first, because we're only really talking about this financial year, aren't we?
Correct.
Which is 200K.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that rate funded OPEX? OPEX.
It will be rates funded OPEX, yes, but it's funding that is yet to be identified. Council resolution was the Chief Executive would identify the funding, so, yeah.
And I haven't identified it. I haven't.
It adds up, but anyway, I feel like this is over budget. But I was hoping someone might correct me.
The resolution was the CapEx got approved, and then there was an OPEX I was to go and find. Haven't found it yet.
Does concern me because we've got one part of the council spending it and we haven't found it at the other half. So
She hasn't spent it yet.
until you found it, it shouldn't be spent.
What you're doing is approving, I guess, our intention to spend it in this way, because once it is found, then we need to get on and do it. You know, you have signed up to the master plan now, and yeah, there is a commitment to the community, particularly in the CBD, and they really are waiting for things to happen to deliver that.
I guess that's a wee bit of a point of it though, Andrew. People are looking for action. I guess that's within the CBD. That's the feedback I'm getting.
Well, we could are doing the capital side of things with the toilet redevelopment and Staff Island Corner, but you know, what we're proposing here is what the community has asked for. We have done extensive consultation with the CBD group, with the Chamber, with VT, and these are the things that are their priorities and they're asking for.
Yeah, so just we discussed this back in July. Enable private sector investment. So while you have got a small portion there that will be directly for funding events and activities, the idea is to leverage, encourage them to invest in their businesses, and that's really why. Yes, it might. I absolutely take your point, Councillor Scott. Us to take that next step, and I think that generally we've seen that all around the country, that councils can definitely stand in the way of vibrancy, but it's not primarily our role, and our building and business owners do for us actually.
I think the trick is value, but it might be got. Because if we're trying to unlock our bylaws or whatever, potentially, I find it interesting how to invest. Well, actually, it should be the other way around. They're the ones that are in business.
I guess that was my point of all that money spent, though. It's it is what it is, and I get your point, Rosie. Is there any way of measuring how much we're unlocking state?
Councils, I don't know if you remember, I think you came actually when you came up from the real challenges, and I think I've identified it in some of the risks with the options here. This is a really difficult one to measure control. So what's happening more generally with market conditions and, you know, the price of construction, interest rates. We do look at feedback from those people, their qualitative analysis, and that's, I know we're talking about roles, just to be really specific, of the 200,000, it's 50,000 in total that's proposed for roles. One is the 10,000 for gap filler to tap into all those case studies they've got from the other councils, and one is the $40,000 for the liaison, the building liaison function. Yeah, I mean, back about the value that they've experienced from that work historically and that they'd like it to continue. That's the best point of reference we have. I could go back through the earlier records from when we had David Penny as our earthquake-prone building liaison officer, and we could look at the number of buildings that took a step forward in terms of during the time we had him engaged, but definitely anecdotally there are people that moved as a result of conversations with him.
I mean, I don't want to report for a report's sake, but that one actually does have some value because the time's ticking. For those that are doing nothing in 12 years, they'll get a sticker on their window or door saying no one can enter. So, you know, I'm supportive of that, but that seems to be the missing step on that one. My final question actually is to Andrew. $3 million on the Sophia Street car park. When's it actually happening? And the second question, I'm a bit confused. Occupancy data to inform the next steps. What's that in relation to?
Car park, yeah, we sort of put that project a little bit on hold at the moment because we're waiting on the actual soil testing and getting a definitive answer for that. That may have quite an impact on the state of that building.
Okay.
So, you know, rather than rush in and spend money getting consultants, we'll just sort of pause for a minute until we get all the data in there, yeah.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And sorry, timeline, we're about 4 weeks from having that work done, is that correct?
Drilling starts on the 18th of November.
Yep.
Perfect, there you go.
Been booked, yeah.
There's a lot of interest obviously in that one. In the dial.
So just around the sensors, I mean, where are you putting them and what's the reason for it?
So what's this in regard to? This is the parking study, is it? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
This is the 750,000 in year 2 of the long-term plan for new parking infrastructure.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. So that's it around, it's an infrastructural thing. Basically, we've got parking meters everywhere at the moment. Anymore. So the intention is at some stage we need to think about better ways of doing that, and that is usually through pay on display machines, and have a completely automated system or number plate recognition. So that the before that'll come up to council at that point. Yeah, whether you want to continue to charge for parking in the CBD.
Just on that building per annum.
Our current revenue on that is about 150,000 a year.
A couple of people asked about the footbridge, and we've had a report to council, 50 grand. Nothing. It might be 200 to fix it next year or something. Can I be reallocated to do that? I'm not sure. It'd be good to see something happen. Neglected and end up costing us more.
I've had, some communication from Mr. Preen on that, who's obviously an interested party, but it would be, I think what's missing is we don't have the market price, so it would be interesting, actually, to package it up and see what the price is and then consider through tenders what that might look like.
Yeah, basically design is nearly complete and we will be.
Last meeting we had was the chief executive was happening.
Locals that live along there actually just went along and knocked on some of those doors that actually probably
It's a community project for a start, and the community may be interested in funding it again, but to the Chief Executive's point, we need to know how much it is first.
Yeah, okay, with that, I'm quite happy to move the option 1 be accepted and we get on with it.
Is there a further discussion? I think the challenge that we got, that we have at the moment is the money there? Hard to get on with stuff if the money's not there in regard to the...
So to that point, so are we making it clear not to spend the 200 till it's found? Because we keep doing this sort of stuff and tripping ourselves up. No, I'm not saying do nothing, Councillor Booth. I'm saying you're the one that's always on about saving money in budgets until it's a raffle. So what I'm saying, we should be okaying the 200 till it's found.
Okay, so we do have a mover. I'll see if there's a seconder for that current motion. Strathallan. With everything, so you're the mover. Yep, can I a seconder for that? Councillor Jackson. Before I put that motion.
I'd like to propose an amendment, but do you have to put that one first?
No, you could propose an amendment to the motion.
I just wonder if we should to endorse the prioritation for the subject to budget.
No. Okay. Okay, what we'll do is we'll vote on the original motion. Councillor Jackson, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Raise your hand. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The ayes have it. Yeah, I'll note. Councillor Pye, and who else did? Or did everyone else? Was that 7? So you are.
Now, Kai Whakatare said that he was going to potentially look at it within FTEs and that whole concept or philosophy of that money and what might be spent is still happening.
Michelle's point of it, as long as it's
Yeah.
Mr. Traynor can find the budget.
But that wasn't in the, that wasn't in the motion, so that is carried. Yep. And thanks for coming in. Yeah, with having no sleep, so I appreciate that. Okay, thank you, team. We've got Grant. Welcome. So we are on page 150. And Andrew, I'll let you guys kick in.
Mr. Mayor, just a report from PDP. Just I suppose as a summary, as you'll have read, that basically climate change is occurring. The report in respect of there's two aspects here. We've got the coastal water and causing erosion, and then the potential for down. The focus of the report says that at the moment the coastal erosion is going to take quite a period of time, but it will encroach eventually. Years' time. At the moment, we obviously have the barrier of the Kiwi Rail and the rail there, and whilst that's there, that seems to be a barrier that is proving effective. Saltwater Creek, they did projections on rainfall, and I think the figure was 120 mils of rain, which we haven't ever had to date, but it is more likely to occur in years to come as these events. A couple of areas mentioned, a number of them we would be needing to work with in conjunction, talking to ECAN, making the report options that were sort of identified where there was a weak point or a low point along behind the material recovery facility, and potentially it mentioned increasing that, and then and the suggestion was that it may not cope with an inundation of water, and mitigation aspect there was to potentially look at another pump. The stop bank, the problem somewhere else, and that's where something is mentioned there, that the engineering report would be required. So the summary, I suppose, is that the coastal erosion will eventually occur, but at the moment it's manageable. KiwiRail, maintain the railway line, and we support that. If they were to move out, then obviously that's something that we would need to address. Other part goes to Saltwater Creek, we could potentially as an additional pump, and obviously, so it's probably about the summary.
Yeah, so basically this report is about giving you the risks that are associated with coastal erosion, with sea inundation and with flooding events. So what we haven't covered is gone into any further detail and costed those up at this stage. So really it's just giving you a status of what the risks are as requested.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Comments or questions?
Time out, and we don't think KiwiRail are going to relinquish that asset for in any short term, that's for sure, and they have been maintaining it, and it does create a barrier for many places along the coast and what have you, and the way they do it, because it locks in and what have you. The pump thing, is that where if there was extra water coming in from Saltwater Creek and that flooded down the back of that area, that ends up in that big pond, that requires a pump there, and it pumps it back out and throws it back into Saltwater Creek?
Basically throws it over the stop bank into the creek, yeah.
And that's where you'd have to have that quick liaison and quick action from ECAN. Get that away regularly and quickly.
Yes, it would be part of the plan. Yeah.
There may be an issue to opening the bar because of the sea was coming in, that may have the opposite effect of what was desired. So that would be something that need to be discussed with ECAN at the time.
Councillor Paddington.
So are we getting it costed? We've got a report saying this is the problem, this is the way to fix it. So I'm suggesting we get...
It comes down to our appetite for risk and whether or not it needs to be done now, or have we got mechanisms in place with those?
I get that, Pete, but what I'm asking is, if the pump's 20k and it reduces the risk greatly, should we do it? But I don't know what the pump is. It might be 300k. So it's hard for me to make an assessment. I've got a pump at home you can borrow.
I think we might need a bigger one. Yeah, I guess it's up to you if you wish us to proceed with giving a... just be aware there is a cost associated in doing that. So at the moment I'm presenting you with a risk. The chances of a significant rainfall event of 120 mils is extremely rare, probably much this, but that risk increases as we go forward in time. So I don't think the risk is very high at the moment. But in 20 years, 30 years, it might be a lot higher.
So why did we get the report?
No, we'd asked for it, so.
Yeah, I know, but I'm asking us.
Yeah. No, so,
Is there an issue here that we're setting up future? Is it not a problem? Because there's a bigger picture here, isn't there? That we continue to dump refuge into a area that's so close to the sea. And I don't know the answer to that, and that report didn't really give me that answer.
It was part of the purpose of the report, but if you, in the report, it gives the details around the coastal erosion and the future there. So I think basically in the next 100 years, the coastline will move about 80 metres. Our landfill is, from memory, about 100 and something metres away. So we you know, the landfill will still not be affected in the next 100 years. Next 200 years, don't know. Yeah.
And to add to that, with the cells, when they're capped, the standard, the engineering standard is at the highest standard. So they're aware that it's close to the coastal area. So the engineering that's involved is probably as good as we can get, because we're stuck with where it is. And obviously going forward, when we do need a new landfill, which is potentially around 2050, a bit later, one thing we wouldn't be looking to do is get one by the coast or by a waterway. So we're slowly learning, yeah.
Alrighty, and yeah, happy to move. Yeah, Councillor Pye, any further discussion? Put the motion, all those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. Cool, thank you, appreciate that piece of work. Okay. Sorry, we've got urgent business, not quite finished. 1, 2 and 3, so I'll just talk through these ones. These are just requests for reports. And we might be able to move them all as one, but there's three things I wanted to discuss. One was, the ECAN rate issue we had, so I'd like a report that basically to remedy it, and also, do you want to, yep. And then the second part of that is, do we continue charging through, charging through effectively.
So the Chair, I can talk to part one of that. The rates resolution amendment is being passed at tomorrow's council meeting for Environment Canterbury. And basically as soon as that's done, we've been doing test recalculations on what the test figures look like, but we wanted to get it in concrete before we did the final calculation. Looking at my own bill, I saved a massive $150 off my rates bill, which is quite nice. From that, they will recalculate all the bills and it will go out as part of the instalment 2 mail out, which will be due in the December quarter. Any overpayments anyone's made on instalment 1 will be taken off the instalment, will be spread out over those last 3 instalments.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, receiving $200,000 for doing the service versus, what some of the staff have to go through, receiving. This is not something that's even on their mind because they don't take any rates for anyone and no one's giving them that constructive feedback. We've had people that have effectively had, mental health days because of the request is a report on the benefit of the 200K to council, and should we be taking that? So you're happy with that? Thanks.
So, of sending out 2 bills, one under our letterhead for ours, one under ECAN letterhead for theirs. Full servicing. So we'll see what the cost of that is.
Yeah. Options.
Sorry, just to Stephen quickly, with all the work staff are doing downstairs and all the work that's happening, what are ECAN chipping in for this cock-up?
My understanding is they said they will come.
sending them a bill.
Communication I have got is exactly that.
We're trying to do it in as efficient a way as possible, and that's why, because again, the ECAN ratepayers are our ratepayers, etc. So that's why we're bundling it in with the instalment 2 invoices as well, just as possible.
Thanks.
Cool. So any of them. The next one was an initial starting paper on unitary authority. Sort of initially would be pros and cons, and obviously there's Dunedin, Southland, West Coast. If you're comfortable with that, and I can work with Nige T on what that might look. Third one was this Smithfield revenue loss, the effect on our operating cost. Dixon's team are doing, and what are they going to bring to us? Paper, it's not I don't need the answer now, Mr. Dixon. That's a paper for a future day. So everyone comfortable with those three? So I'll move them as one, I think. Those, put the motion, all those in favour, please say aye. Against. The first one was local water done well, so I'll pass to them.
IA and 3 neighbouring councils while we're working up our local water done well delivery plan. We've got a project team, internal project team, with one exception. We've brought Michael Borer in to do the financials. Financials for the water are nearly are complete. We've just got to review those, and the financials for what remains has also been done. And the water as a standalone looks sustainable. However, there is an issue left in the council that has to be sorted. So the size of that issue is to be checked. And/or workshop to the November council meeting, so as we get you up to speed on where we're at and what is required. The DIA have been impressing on us that it's more than likely that the CCO model will be the preferred. CCO or with neighbouring councils. The neighbouring councils, Waitaki is forging ahead with its own CCO, but they are interested in potential mergers at a later date. They just want to get moving before they look at that. Ashburton is doing the same. Mackenzie, they're working up their numbers as of now. Waimate didn't submit an LTP, so they're waiting to get that done. They're doing it this year, and they need to work that up. Bora's then going to pull the 4 councils together to look at what does that look like as an entity on its own. So we're working well together.
So your concerns are over stranded over?
Yeah, correct.
Just remind me what percentage of our staff are involved in?
About 40, so 12%, something like that.
DIA that the country's going to end up with 70 or 67 CCOs, and I think we're probably one of the ones that are keen to work together, and everyone's forging off in different directions. So we'll await the answer from Waimate Mackenzie, but I think that's partly why we actually need to further the conversation around unitary authorities, and it's not around necessarily, or it's not at all around a takeover, it's just how we work. Water, and I think there's a better and more efficient model across the 3 councils that can work. So then the next one was the art gallery in the pump shed, which I didn't think that building was permanent out the front, but it is permanent out the front. I'm sure it's going to have some lovely cladding by the time it's finished and look like a mini art gallery or something. Oh, yeah. Oh, have you sent me an email? Hold on, we've got. Or Beth and Matt, if you can give us an update. Thanks.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Whoever wants to lead.
So effectively, so it's required for resource consent. Well, actually, these two are sitting there. They can talk.
Very happy to respond. Understanding of what exactly your concerns are. Councillor Booth, I understand that you did speak with Matt about this earlier today. So for the context of this meeting and for my benefit, if you could just let me know what your question is, and I'm happy to provide some responses.
Just for context, I just flicked you all the email of the shed, so what it looks.
I can't believe you put the thing there. It's just a square box in front of an art gallery. Do you not think that's quite inappropriate? I think it is.
With respect. Actually, we've got some very clear regulatory constraints around why we have to have that in the first place. I have got Matt here who can actually speak to some of the specifics. A couple of the key points here is requirements around distance and prescribed distance to where the truck have to have this in place. As you can see from the material that Matt's distributed, it is quite a significant bit of infrastructure, so it does require housing around it. It must also be free from proximity to combustible items, so that's items such as trees, for example, or other buildings. Buildings, previous location of the house. This was done specifically with consultation from all of the staff in respect to the placement. There is no alternative location for it. And we've agreed that it was doable if we could make best use of that space for advertising purposes, which would also effectively reduce our OPEX when it came to advertising. But happy to hand over to you, Matt.
Yeah, just also note that those photos you've taken, it's not complete. So that is not actually the finished product of the outside of the building. It will be of the same style as the house, so it'll be smooth and same colour. But then the idea is to put advertising space on it. It's us making the best out of a worse situation. If you look at that plan that shows it on the front page, there is nowhere else we can put it. It can't be obstructed by anything. It must be within 20 metres of the road. So it can't be under trees, can't be at the back of gardens, can't be... Is what it is.
Back further towards the building.
It has to be a minimum distance.
It was there, and it could have been built into the back of the newer modern piece. And it would have been less than...
So if we were to build into the modern piece, it would be a consent amendment because we're actually affecting another part of the building. The cost would increase, and then what we do is we put a potential risk of water in the art store, which I think we can all agree is not
Things are not
catastrophic.
new. They're in most modern buildings, and they're included in the buildings.
Yes, and in most modern buildings, they're brand new and you can design it into the building. In this case, we can't. We can't design it into any building. If we're building brand new, yes, you could here we are trying to retrofit This has never been a secret of where its location has been, all the way through from consent, through tenders and procurement. It's always been there.
What fence comes down, you might find that it might be a wee bit different when the public start driving past and seeing what it is.
As I said, it's not been a secret of where this location's been throughout the whole project.
I think that's a little bit unfair, team, because your consent only just came through in June. Ended on the 7th of the 8th, but a building consent issued on the 10th of the 6th, but...
Building
so I
consent was
don't
issued in
think
2021.
Tender and procurement wouldn't have noted that.
The consent was issued in 2021. If I could have put it anywhere else, I would have, but it is what it is. So we're trying to make the best out of the situation by hiding it with advertising.
In order for us to be compliant with the sprinkler system, we have to have that this is no alternative. So that's what we've got to do. As we mentioned before, we can offer wraps around and the team's comfortable that they can actually use that to the best of their ability to advertise well, relatively discreetly and less expensive.
Because it doesn't, what is the height of the unit? I can't see that.
It's basically from the floor level to at the back it's 2.4, plus it has a parapet around the front.
2.4.
Yeah, to the back gutter, because it has got a monopitch, which we've hidden.
Have the same cladding, same colour on it, and I don't know if you could put some terracotta tiles on the top.
We actually tried to avoid putting the terracotta tiles on because we didn't want it to. No. Yeah. The sprinkler installers, because when we did see it go up, it was like, well, what can we do? And you can see in there's one pipe, and it goes up and round. And they said they could spending a lot of money for 100 mil. So.
Can you turn it into a Doctor Who styled phone box? Might look quite nice next to the art gallery.
It's a piece of art, it's how do we make the best out of the situation?
And given that we hang art exhibition signage for the upcoming exhibitions out the front of the gallery anyway, as I mentioned, we're going to utilise this as a wrap space so that we can advertise from all three sides as well, so it gets full visibility. We have considered those options and consulted with the...
Yep, let's get creative. Alrighty, thanks team, appreciate that.
Just the stadium update.
Oh, sorry, Stu.
So the tenders have been received, they've been evaluated, and a paper will be coming to the Tenders and Procurement Committee meeting on the 19th of November. We're also trying to consider the outcome on our way.
Thank you.
Perfect, apologies. For consideration, we had Dr. Phil present, and we had Russell Lund. I think we can just note Russell Lund, so that's fine. I don't think there's any consideration. The theatre, and it had a lot to do with historic buildings, and then in regard to the Climate Trust, running out of voice, or leaders forum, is there an action that you want in there? Obviously, I think Councillor Scott, you alluded to some of the work going on with VT, and I think that opportunity for trusts like this, and I actually did think after the last meeting that there was going to be some collaboration again with Sustainable South Canterbury, who we obviously fund for other work through the waste contract, etc. Funding. There is a lot of work being done And I think, Michelle, you've made that point around a lot of the stuff sits with industry as well, and there'll be a heap of work going. I question that.
100% agree. There is so much that industry bodies are doing, and Fonterra is well aware of Scope 3 emissions and are working with. So I fail to see how South Canterbury can solve what is a national and global problem. But I think it wouldn't be a good investment for us.
No, I agree, and that's what it comes down to. Yeah, I question the value. Councillor Piddington, thanks.
Just on Russell Lund's proposal, I do know Russell. He's quite a clever guy.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any way we can utilise him? Because, he's saying actually the cost could be 20 million if you live within. Because are we Rolls-Royce inside and we only have to be a Ford Cortina and still function, that 80-20? Maybe we miss a couple of shows, but it functions. I don't know. I'm down, but if there's a quick way, maybe the CE could have a chat to him just to make sure all our bases are covered.
I said I would talk to him.
Yep.
So,
more than anything else, wasn't it? The set lines and
So
stuff.
don't spend millions for.
Yeah. Remember, Ashburton were telling us he would like more lines.
Yeah, but what Russell was saying was more about the video capabilities and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we asked the
Technology,
user group
so.
that, and they said it's in its real infancy.
Yeah, but still, looking ahead.
That was to do with the question I asked him around how he would approach it, and that was how the Oamaru Council actually did their one. They got the locals in, and they just worked through it with some experienced locals, and they didn't, whereas we require a firm budget, we want to know what's going to cost, and therefore we rush out and get all these reports, and everyone. A couple of local builders into it and just start getting stuck into it.
I think that's probably the different approach.
That's that risk. So unless we are prepared to take that risk, there's no point.
I think this time round we are using the locals.
Yeah.
We've got the local architects, we've got local user group. We want, whoever builds it, they've got to work to a plan.
Builders here now in Timaru, yet they didn't make the grade to do the local Argentine art gallery.
Yeah.
So how's that going to work?
I can't.
Mr. Trainer committed to connect with him, and he has done previously after that meeting. So that, I think, is everything. Well done. Thanks, everyone. Safe travels to those that are going down to VT conference, and others we've got Hall of Fame starting at 6. So brilliant. Thanks, everyone, for the day.